Hi, I'm Melissa Carbonell. If you haven't been to my channel before, I have a real estate team here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I am sitting here today with Patrick Sullivan, who is an amazing appraiser, but also he knows a lot about property taxes.
Yes, nice to see you today. And,
you too. And to meet you face to face.
And that's right, that's right. So was Victoria Park your farm area?
It's where I live. So I live there. I'm president of the Victoria Park Civic Association. So
You're a very involved woman, aren't you? Yeah, good.
I really love our community. I used to be in Coral Ridge. I love Coral Ridge. We wanted to be really close to the restaurants, like walk everywhere, do that kind of stuff. So that's what we did.
That's right. Yeah. History in Victoria Park.
Yeah, we turn 100 years old next year.
That's right.
So we're having a big party on November 16th at Stranahan House because Stranahan sold the Victoria Park land to Kuhn 100 years ago.
Yeah. Stuff going on back then after the railroad came in.
All right, so we had a good conversation the other day, and
yes.
we could have talked for hours, I think. So you have a lot of good information. And I think a lot of us in our mailboxes in the last week or so have gotten what we call the trim notice. So I'm going to show you an example.
Is your trim notice?
Yeah.
This is the county provides to all residents in Broward County. And then, if I might, Melissa, take your sheet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on this sheet here, inside of the trim notice, we'll find this sheet here, and this talks about your specific house.
Okay, this is our educational piece.
That's correct.
And then that is my actual house.
This is what you'll see. But it's the same thing here, and this is a very important trim notice. On here, September 18th, that's the day of the year that is the end of your time to file a tax appeal.
Oh, you don't have a lot of time.
You don't have a lot of time. You must act very quickly, get your ducks in order. I had 3 calls today for new tax cases to review for people.
Nice.
And I tell them, I say, if you're a week ahead, if you don't have contacted me by September 12th, you may not be able to petition with me serving you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop all of us as property taxpayers to look over and understand our trim notices, especially if we're going to sell a house in the next year or two, or if we are going to buy a house and we want to check on what taxes are going to be. It's important to know.
I always look at, I'm in the business, right?
Yes.
And I still look at this and go, okay, I don't know what all of this means. I just know that this is what my estimated tax bill is going to be as soon as my actual tax bill comes in. Yeah.
I want to say something very important for people. We all love to complain. Taxes is one of the things we complain. We complain to each other, but it does us no good. On this sheet of paper here, it'll tell us the date and the time that we have residents, as being taxpayers, that have being citizen, the right to speak to our taxing authority. And right here, it'll show you where you can go downtown to the 4th floor, 115 Andrews, September 5 at 5:01. And you sign in and you can speak to the commission and say to the commission what you as a taxpayer, you have 3 minutes, what you feel about your taxes. Are they too high? Are they throwing away money? Are they giving too much money to some groups and not the other groups? Why are my taxes going up? Why is my hospital tax so much?
Right.
And they will take the overview. But you also have other meetings that you can go to that are enumerated here that apply to you at your specific location. And I encourage all people to think about this, and if you really want to, it's a good opportunity to take the time to do it. It's similar to your tax assessments. We're all granted the right to petition for relief of our tax assessment, but we have to provide evidence why it should be lower.
So what's the evidence? How do we get the evidence?
The evidence is extremely important too, and here's the issue. And why do I speak like this? I speak like this
You're
because
passionate.
I've also worked as a magistrate downtown, listening to the property appraiser tell me what the value should be with their evidence, which are sales. Then the homeowner or their representative gets an opportunity to speak and present evidence of why the assessment is too high, and they can provide sales. Now here's, Melissa, what's very critical, and people forget this, and that's why I had to toss out so many people. The comparable sales you have must have sold in the year 2023.
Wait, what?
That's correct. Remember, in Florida,
So because this tax bill is from that time.
we pay our taxes in arrears.
Yeah.
Remember that, we pay
Okay.
our taxes in arrears.
So they're not looking at what's sold in the last 8 months of this year. They're looking at last year.
That's exactly right. All your sales, so that's one of the big issues that I want you, all people, to focus on. Pull your sales from 2023. That determines your tax basis for 2024. And let's say you maybe had a fire or a damage, or your home is in distress, or you're having external influences like a new roadway was built, or as I've worked on before, when they changed the traffic patterns for the runways in Fort Lauderdale.
It's going to devalue a property.
Exactly right. And that's your chance to go downtown and offer the opportunity to challenge them. And I think it's very important for us to exercise that right. And they're very fair about it. It only costs $15.
No.
That's all you pay, $15, to have them look at your case. I think what they're doing now, rather than you going downtown and bringing your evidence downtown, it's all pretty much handled on the internet.
Oh.
Where what you do is you pay your $15, then they give you a file number, and then you go to their website, you put in your file number and your passwords, and you load up your sales that you want to present. So then when your Zoom interview comes up with the special magistrate and the clerk, that they can, and probably the property appraiser will be there too.
Right.
That's when the property appraiser will see your sales. Now it's very important too to remember, don't wait until your hearing to send in your sales. They're going to tell you the cutoff date for your sales. Many times.
Do you need a full appraisal done in order to do this? Or can you
Great
pull
question.
sales yourself?
Great
Or
question.
have a realtor pull sales for you? Or, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I do? I tell people, try to do it yourself. Learn something. When I talk to people and I teach them, I say, I've taught you now how to do it. I want you to teach your neighbor so that your neighbor can petition your taxes. Melissa can be the representative for her neighbor. Do you realize that?
No.
You're called the agent,
Yeah.
and you can file it. And it's actually a source of income, I believe, for real estate salespeople to represent people on their taxes. They can do it. A lot of times attorneys do it, but you can have your aunt be your agent. You
Yeah.
have to sign a document saying they are your agent.
They're there to speak for you. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get back to pulling sales. No, you do not need a full appraisal. Now, I already have one petition in the system. One of the petitions that I have in the system right now is a man called me. He lives, our city dump used to be in the northwest Fort Lauderdale area. And around that area, they had environmental issues. I understand now that they've cleaned it up and it's no longer an environmental problem, and they may even put a film production, commercial film production in this vacant land. But the problem was this, is that the man called me and wanted me to represent him, and I said the best way for me to represent you is to do a full appraisal.
Okay. So it's not always required, but sometimes it is.
Well, if you send them a full appraisal provided by a reputable real estate appraiser, they will look it over. And
Right.
when you sign a real estate appraisal, you're signing what's called a certification, saying that you're doing an unbiased opinion of market value. So that if you use that appraisal and you go to somebody else, they understand that we're telling you the good and the bad about this property. So when the county receives that appraisal, you're certifying to the county that you're telling the good points and the bad points on that house. And what they will do is they'll look at that appraisal, and they may sometimes do this. They'll look it over, they'll get on their computer, they'll go, those sales are reasonable. And sometimes they will make you an offer to reduce the taxable value before you even go to your hearing.
Because they've already reviewed it and they're like, okay,
Reviewed it.
this is reasonable, this makes sense, let's, instead of wasting the time of the magistrate.
That's right.
Yeah,
Or
right.
wasting their time.
Time.
But the issue too, if you do not take that offer, it comes off the table. So when you go to the hearing, you say to them, well, you offered me this lower amount. They're going to tell you that offer is now off the table. So you have to
Right.
decide whether or not you want to take that offer.
Right.
Or you want to go to the hearing.
Do you advise people in those cases?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. And most of the time I say, you know, honestly, you really probably should take their offer.
Right.
Because then you're going to go in front of a magistrate and you're going to present your evidence, and you never know which way
Right.
the magistrate's going to.
Right.
So that's a part of it. That's what you should do. And once again, you have to look at that sales in the 2023 time period, and you want to have sales that are similar to your house. What you want to do too is if your home is run down and beat up. Let me explain it this way. So I go to see the house in this neighborhood. Nice people, lived there for years. He even had 2 lots next door, and he didn't even know if those were on the same tax ID bill. So I researched it and I go, no, you have a separate tax bill for this vacant land also. But it's the house that they popped the value on the house almost to $600,000. What had happened in his neighborhood, somebody built a white elephant. Now, a white elephant is a super adequacy, long-lived, incurable. Too big a house, 3,000 square foot house in a 1,000 square foot neighborhood. That house sold for a lot of money and popped all the other assessments. Okay.
But there weren't other it's not like it was continuing because Fort Lauderdale's growing so fast. And I know this may not have been Fort Lauderdale, but so you see that, but typically you see more development come behind it.
Oh, they
yeah.
are. See,
Yeah.
but this is actually unincorporated Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
Nobody wanted this section of land because it was in this area of damaged.
Okay.
So they didn't know.
Environmental issue. Okay.
So they had it assessed almost for 600,000, and then they dropped the assessment down to 550 because they knew that something must happen. He hired me to do the appraisal. I found 6 similar sales, and what I do, and many appraisers don't do this, but you know I'm nosy, so I call the agents
Yeah.
that sold.
I get
each
calls
of
from
the-
appraisers all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
asking, hey, you sold this back in whatever,
Mhm.
you know, and they have questions because they're trying to do an appraisal and they're trying to do a good job.
That's right. And
Yeah.
those are good
yeah.
appraisers.
Yeah. Yeah.
The bad appraisers, we know, we'll talk about this in future interviews. The bad appraiser would probably be an appraiser who just absolutely does the bare minimum, fills out the form, signs the form, and sends it off. A lot of times the bad appraiser does this. Many times bad appraisers do this, and you can read about them in your state real estate bulletins. They're being challenged, they're being reprimanded because they sent their cousin to see the
Oh my gosh.
house. Okay? They sent Tony to see the house, and Tony says to the people, well, Bob told me to take pictures. And Bob makes the mistake.
I don't
because-
want to sideline us too much, but realtors have the same problem. That's why I only use super lockboxes, because people give the combo code for their client to go to the property.
Yep.
So I don't use those lockboxes. We have the same problem. So let's not sideline, let's stay on track. You're nosy.
So they had it at 550.
Yeah.
I came in on my appraisal, legitimate appraisal, after checking the market and making all these notes, under $400,000.
Wow.
So he was really going to get popped.
Yeah. A lot of tax money.
With a lot of tax money, and this is what I recommended too. He took my appraisal on a PDF, just a card, downtown, filed his paperwork.
So this was
downtown.
not a homesteaded property, because he would have had some protection there.
You see, somebody died in the family.
Oh, so they got it in an estate.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
They
Right,
popped up
right.
his taxes. Somebody
Right,
passed away.
right.
And and this is what I recommend with people too. You go right down here to 115 Andrews Avenue to the county courthouse, first floor. You can pay your $15. They're just the sweetest people, and they'll give you a receipt for the 15, and then he takes his appraisal on a thumb drive and they download it for him so this evidence is presented. He calls me back, he said he presented the evidence, and I said to him, when you hear from the county, call me and I will guide you further.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
I stick with them.
Right.
Because we don't work just to work, we work to help people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the nicest things for him to email me after I saw the house and how much he appreciated it. He needed help.
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel better.
Right. You're doing good work.
Well, that's what we try to do. That's correct.
So on your trim notice, when you get it, you have until September 18th in order to ask for an appeal. And if you think you're going to need an appraisal, you want to hire a good appraiser like Patrick Sullivan to make sure that you have a solid appeal with all of your comparables, solds from the year of that you're appealing. 2023 right now. So 2023 right now. So we had some other conversations the other day. Took us into, let's talk about this NAR thing, which I know we're hearing not everywhere, but I do want to touch on it today because what I noticed and what Patrick was also thinking was this is going to affect our values. So as we're splitting up compensation and maybe having buyers pay some of the compensation and maybe having sellers pay some or a combination thereof, we're going to see it come off of the sales price, which in the past, it was pretty much just built into the sales price most of the time. That was the way that it was done. I actually have one right now that my buyers are paying cash for the house and they are going to pay my compensation separately. They don't want the seller to pay it because they want to lower the price of the house for tax purposes. This is something that they presented to me. They also wanted to do the listing side and I said that's just probably a bridge too far right now. This is all new for everybody. But yeah, that's something that, there's two sides to this sword. One side is you will save something on your taxes. 3%. That's my side.
Yep.
Your side is the other.
Well, and on the tax side too. What that means is all your new sales, if they're sold on MLS and if they're recorded at 97% of the home value and it's recorded with the county at 97%, that would suggest you're going to save 3% on your property tax.
Right.
But the issue too that we talked about, and one that I feel is very important, is that you're going to get an appraisal on your house for 3% less after this date because all of your comparable sales will be recorded at 3% less than what we thought was market value. And I think this could be very damaging because now you have one sale in your neighborhood that's 3% less, and then another one sells and it's 3% less, then you're getting down to 90% of market value. And when you originate a mortgage, right, they're not going to originate a mortgage at what market value is, but they're going to originate a mortgage at 97% of that before sale. I
am a licensed loan originator, just for full disclosure here.
Yes.
So I started in this industry with a mortgage company.
Melissa, you really know your stuff. I talk to a lot of people, and she knows mortgages, which is critical when you're dealing with people. Yeah. Because you have to know if your deal's going to fly.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because let's say, so right now, when you're an appraiser and I get these calls, so appraisal will call me, they're like, you did this deal on X and X, do you remember if there were seller concessions? So I'm very curious to know if the buyer paying compensation to the buyer's broker, let's just say the buyer's agent, just for the ease. We all know where the money goes. So is that going to be factored like concessions in a sense? Because
yes, I think it will.
Yeah.
But you won't have to subtract it on your work page in an appraisal.
That's what I was.
You won't have a line item to factor because it's already knocked off the top.
Yeah, but let's say the seller, nope, still be the same. The seller would, because right now I think we're going to see two options. We're going to see the seller paying the buyer's broker. We're going to see the buyer's paying the buyer's broker. We're not going to see this. I think what's going to go away, and I'm totally pontificating here for Florida, but I think what's going to happen is the sellers are no longer going to pay just the listing brokerage, and then the listing brokerage pay the buyer brokerage. I think that's going to maneuver its way out because it still kind of gives the vibe, I've used that word twice since you've been here, of cooperation, you know, which we're trying to get away from. We're trying to get separation. So from one perspective, you're looking at like decrease in value, decrease in value, decrease in value, because the compensation is being separated from the sales price. And then from the other perspective, like my buyers who probably won't sell this house until they're much older, you know, they would keep it for a very long time. To them, it was all about saving on the property taxes. Lower the price, save on the taxes, because really, since they're paying cash, it doesn't make sense to put the compensation inside of the deal.
And you know what'll happen also? I think I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant.
Me either.
That's right. So I do not give legal advice or tax advice.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they'll have a larger capital gain than the seller.
Yeah.
Do you think that sounds reasonable?
No. How would they have a larger capital gain?
Because when they record the sale, they're not going to record. They're not going to subtract that 6 or 7%.
But it's going to come out of what they're paying too.
Well, maybe so.
Yeah, I think it's a wash.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean, I think it's a wash.
We're in such a gray area. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I think it's a wash because it's going to come off the price. So when I would figure out like capital gain, because I do it on my house all the time, just waiting for it to go from 500,000 to $1 million. That would be great. Yeah. Not that we get $1 million, but it's like property values have gone up so much, and that $250 per person is just outdated. That needs to go up.
Yeah, that's
yeah. So you have your numbers here. What did that mean? Because you're like, well, let's say we were at 100% value, so we were at $1 million.
So we can say $1 million. So
well, there's not many $100,000 properties here, so we probably should.
That's why I did the math this way. All I need. So if you have a home that's market value worth $1 million, I got 3 offers at $1 million.
Yeah.
But the buyer has to pay their 3%. Well, on the tax records, it's not going to record as $1 million. The tax records are going to record it at $970,000.
Okay, but I do think that you're still going to see sellers paying. All of my sellers are still offering compensation. They're just paying it directly to the buyer's broker instead of paying it to us and then us paying the buyer's broker.
Well, that's fine.
It's a shell game.
Yeah, it's a shell game, that's right. But the fact game is what's recorded with the county.
Yeah.
And as an appraiser, we have to reflect that value.
Right.
What it's recorded on your tax system, because that's a fact. That's not an opinion.
Right.
And that's what they live by. So it's going to
very
depend
curious
on how it's going to record.
if the appraisal, whoever regulates appraisers, like in Florida, I'm very curious to see how that's factored, because it's like, well, we sold at this value, but we didn't have to pay buyer broker compensation.
Yeah, but that's
because it's kind of like looking at a short seller in REO, or a lot of seller concessions, or rate buy downs, or all that stuff. Like, will they eventually educate appraisers on how to factor that, if at all?
Right. Well, here's the thing. I think it's going to have to be a change in law.
Oh, yeah, probably.
It's going to have to be a change in rules that have to go through Congress and everything that's going to affect appraisers. Because appraisers just can't go in and, well, hell, I know it sold for $1 million. I'm going to use that as a comparable sales price.
Yeah, of course not.
We don't bend things. We try not to. So it could have a dampening effect on resales in the neighborhood as each sale is recorded less and less, if that happens to be the case. It's also going to affect the property appraiser, as his market values are going to drop by 3 and 3.
Right.
We don't know if this is going to come, but our discussion today is critical, because we have to have our eyes open into what we're going into.
Okay, I want to jump to my favorite subject, which is not trim notices, and it's not the NAR settlement. Portability. Let's do it. This is my favorite. So if you don't know, I'm going to explain it my way. He can explain it his way, and somehow you'll get an understanding of it. So portability, in what happened a long time ago in Florida, and maybe you can correct me anywhere if I'm saying this wrong, is people were not willing to sell their houses because they didn't want to move. They didn't want to move up because of the tax burden, right? So they had this protected increase number on their taxes on their property, and if they moved, they would start over from scratch, you know, with the new sales price. So they didn't want to move, houses were not moving, people were not moving. So they I think it's statewide, right? Yeah. They came in and they said, you know what, we're gonna allow portability, which means that we're gonna take the value of the house you're in now, and we have a factor that we use. We compare it against that purchase price of your new house, and you're gonna have some of that protected value that you get to take with you, take with you to your next property. I used it on my last home purchase from going from Coral Ridge to Victoria Park, and it has still saved us. I think you and I talked about it a little bit. You could see it on our tax bill, that, you know, on our trim notice, that we were still getting the benefit. I think it was $400,000. I don't know, something like that, that we're still getting on, that's
saving you $8,000 a year.
It's saving so much money.
Yeah.
It's saving so much money. So, but Pat taught me something that I did not know, which was that you can actually get portability if you downsize. So I did not know that. So what's your 2 cents on portability?
Well, maximum portability you can have is $500,000.
All right. So they can just keep increasing the value if you have portability, even if the prices have gone down.
They continue to increase your assessment. Your
assessment
value.
Yeah, your assessed value.
They will continue to increase assessed value, which is going to
And what are they basing that on?
Well, example, if we crashed in 24, prices went down 30%, still pay based on 2023 sales price.
Oh, that's true.
So you wouldn't.
So then wouldn't the next year it go down?
Next year, then they will consider those lower sales the following year.
But you really should look at appeal at that time, probably. In the next year.
Yeah, but you might not have reason for appeal.
Yeah.
Because they're basing your tax on assessed value, not market value.
Right.
It gets complex, but hopefully we try to clear some things up.
Yeah. So you have your email there to share with people and your phone number?
Well, my email is
okay.
the best.
Yeah, it's super easy. Pat Soul at Pat Soul.
Pat Soul at patsoul.com.
That's easy.
Yeah, I've been in business a long time, so I got my domain name.
And if you didn't catch that, you can always just message us on the YouTube channel and we'll connect you with Pat. Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, I'm looking forward to doing, and
we'll do more. We'll do some trainings for agents, and
I would like to empower
I think it'll be good. Yeah.
And teach them how to be a better agent, working with appraisers, working with taxation.
Right. You know, you can order appraisals not necessarily just when you are buying a house. You know, when you're selling a house, sometimes we can see the comps, we can go in and we can look at off-market stuff and figure out what's closed in the tax records, but we still don't know how an appraiser does the full calculation, sometimes figuring it out. So because, especially around this area where there's just such a difference in homes, and so, like Victoria Park, for example, I mean, oh my gosh. So there's homes that were built 100 years ago, and that are in very good shape. And then there's homes that are not in such good shape that were built 80 years ago. And then there are brand new constructions. They take those older homes and, you know, put the new constructions. And so there's such a variety of different decades. Sometimes it is tricky to price things in there.
Listen, I do a lot of pre-listing appraisals.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I'm not cheap.
Yeah.
But we want to find out what's going on in the market.
Right.
And just like I said earlier, it just drives me crazy I'm Miami Shores, Keystone Point.
Oh yeah.
Guy's gonna list.
I have one of my very good friends. She's an agent there. She's yeah.
I love
Kim
Keystone
Marchena.
Point.
Yeah, she lives there. She loves it.
Some
yeah.
of the high ground, that's what's
Yeah.
important.
So I happen to be in Victoria Park on one of the highest points in the neighborhood. So we're on one of the highest Coral Ridge.
That's right, on Coral Ridge is what you want to be. So he had an appraiser come in and appraise his house at 3.9 because he didn't appraise it. A buyer wanted to buy his house, hired an appraiser, came in at 3.9.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm not trusting this guy. He's a doctor. It's worth a lot of money. He hires me. I'm expensive, but I do my job. I came in 5.5.
Oh my God.
The guy was an idiot.
Oh my gosh.
Absolute idiot. And why? You know Keystone Point. There's one huge wide canal that comes in the center.
Right.
He was like 6 houses off the opening
on
a wide canal.
Oh.
And the appraiser was using these homes where you have to go down this canal over
where all the
this
trash
canal.
collects at the end of the canal.
Well, when you're spending $6, $7, $10 million, you want access for your $10 million boat, and you pay for it.
Oh my gosh.
And boy, he made a big mistake. So I do that. I do trust appraisals.
Okay.
If your family member dies and the attorney or the accountant says you have to have an appraisal for taxation periods, and you go, yeah, but they died 5 years ago, I do those appraisals.
You go back to that point.
I go back in 5 years and
right.
provide certified appraisals for estates and trusts. And pre-listing, of course, taxation appraisals. I also do, we'll talk about this later, I also do loss in value. I've worked with some of the best loss in value is called damages.
Okay.
Example, I don't want to take all our time today.
Yeah.
We have a home, you know where Little Florida is, don't you?
Yes.
Right? Across the waterway from Little Florida, there was a murder-homicide. And we were hired to determine what the loss in value of that, because there was a murder in the home.
Right.
And I can speak about it because it's public information.
In Florida, we do not have to disclose it, which is interesting. You know, sometimes if someone feels something, then I'm like, oh, I'm going into Google and I'm like, let's see if something happened here.
Well, I got to arm wrestle you on that one, because it's not that you can disclose or you can't disclose it. The issue, from what I've read of the law, and I'm not an attorney, you can't be sued for not disclosing it.
Oh, okay. It
protects you.
Okay.
So if you think it's haunted or another...
I haven't been on that side of it, where I've had a house that I've listed, you know, that I knew something about like that. But I have been in houses where we were all kind of like, oh, this house feels weird, and then we're like going to look if something happened, which is kind of like just a weird thing. But I think, sometimes people get curious, or if a house has been sitting vacant for a really long time.
And I do unique houses too. And a lot of times people get into these houses and they just don't know how to price them. And then if you have a formal appraisal done by somebody reputable.
Okay, you know the little, I think they're called Cracker Homes or whatever. It's on Victoria Park Road. It's white. They filmed like, I don't know how many movies there, but that house isn't anywhere else.
Sure.
You know, inside of not on Victoria Park Road. There's not another house like that. You know, it's gives a very, almost like Louisiana vibe.
We both are fans of history.
Yeah.
There's so much we'll talk about.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
These are the things that we saw and all the trends back in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we did good today.
We did good, absolutely.
Bye. Thanks for coming to the channel. If you have any questions, of course, you can message and we can answer anything for you, connect you with an appraiser if you need one, a realtor, a loan originator. What else do you need?
It doesn't cost anything to call me.
No, me either.
No.
Me either.
And sometimes I can tell you like that.
Yeah.
Whether you should go left or right, and I'm not charging you.
Oh, it's great.
Because we take care of people, don't we?
Yes, we do. We're helping. We're teaching.
To help.
Yeah. All right.